Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've mentioned before that people in positions of authority or power need to be held to a higher standard. So they can make mistakes, but when they make mistakes, they should be held accountable for them. And here's one where that actually happened. So this is an interesting story. KSNT published this. Ed sent it. Thanks a lot, my friend. Made a dumb mistake. That's the quote. Made a dumb mistake. KHP officer fired after a bar incident. That's Kansas Highway Patrol. Coulter Robinson wrote the story, but the KHP officer was stripped of his badge by the Kansas Commission on Peace Officers Standards and Training after a complaint alleged he criminally deprived an individual of their property while out playing billiards with friends. The allegation is he stole a man's jacket. On March 12th of last year, the officer was drinking and playing billiards at a bar in Shawnee County, according to court documents. The victim was playing pool with a friend of the officer's, and the victim's jackets were on a table close to the officer and his friends. When the victim went to close his bar tab, he couldn't find his jacket, and of course his debit card was in there. He went to the bar and asked the officer's group of friends if anyone had taken his jackets. It says jackets plural, so apparently he had more than one. The officer's friend leaned in and whispered, "If someone took your jackets, it was him," pointing to the officer. And that's not a good sign either. The victim confronted the officer about taking the jackets, who at first he denied taking. And then an officer's friend showed the victim where the officer's vehicle was, and the jackets were on the front passenger seat, according to the summary written by the investigators. A witness said the officer initially denied the vehicle as his, but eventually returned the property to the victim. After learning that the officer was a law enforcement officer, the victim repeatedly asked him for his badge number, but he refused to provide it, according to the KC Post summary. Now, again, I don't know that there's a rule that says an off-duty officer must provide his badge number to a stranger who asks for it, but it does indicate, I would believe, what we call a guilty mind. When people do things, you can ask why they do them. Why wouldn't the man give someone else his badge number? So the officer told the victim that the jackets were just lying there, and he made a dumb mistake and didn't know what he was thinking. So he was issued a summons for the first case hearing on May 24th of next year, believe it or not. Throughout the case events, he represented himself pro se, no attorney. The case was dismissed in a post-deferred adjudication back in May when the officer entered into a one-year diversion agreement for the misdemeanor charge of criminal deprivation of property, according to Shawnee County case summary. Now, I've talked before about theft and different levels of theft. So if I take it from you by force, it's robbery. If I take it from you with no force, that might be stealing or theft. Here it's deprivation of property because it wasn't taken from the person, and it actually was given back to the person. It was just a period of time where it wasn't available to them. They were deprived of it. As a result of the incident, the investigators found that the officer failed to maintain a good moral character sufficient to warrant public trust as a law enforcement officer. As a result, they ordered the man's LEO certification to be revoked on August 16th of this year, according to the summary of the revocation. And so that's interesting because the Kansas Highway Patrol, I'm assuming, is a pretty good gig as a law enforcement officer. I know in Michigan, the Michigan State Police is the one you want to have. You want to be a Michigan State Trooper. And if you can do that, that's pretty good. Of course, there's local cops, there's county sheriffs, and so on. And I'm not saying that one's better than the other, but I've known guys who are in law enforcement, and a lot of them want to be state troopers. And so once you become a highway patrol officer, whether in Kansas or elsewhere, it's a pretty good gig. So to lose your ability to do that, that is your certification, would be a very serious issue. And so what's interesting about this, and again, a lot of people would hear, wait, he grabbed a guy's jacket and gave it back to him that night, and for that he can no longer be a police officer in Kansas? Well, there's more to the story, though, because he took the jacket, and when somebody said, oh, it's in this car, he goes, that's not my car. So now he's lying about it. And then later, he gives it back to the guy and goes, okay, here's your jacket. I just made a dumb mistake. Yeah, you stole someone's jacket and you stole their debit card that was inside the jacket. And by the way, some people ask that question. They go, if I steal something and I don't know there's something inside of it, am I liable for that? Yes, you are. You're not supposed to steal stuff. That's the risk you take when you steal something you don't know what it contains. And I'll give you a great example of that. I remember a couple of years back, there was a famous story that hit the national news where some kids were out running around on Halloween, older kids, 14, 15 years old, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's a while ago. And they were running around causing trouble, and they were running by and grabbing kids' bags of candy. So we could go trick-or-treating ourselves, but that takes time. Let's just go grab some bags of candy from other little kids. So they'd run to the little kid and grab his bag of candy and run off. So again, taking something by force from somebody, of course, is, in fact, robbery. And yes, doesn't matter these are kids, doesn't matter it's candy. But interestingly, there's a little kid who's walking around with a bag of candy, and he put his glasses in the bag so he could wear his mask. So when somebody came by and grabbed his bag of candy, they also stole his glasses. And so somebody who might not have otherwise called the police and said, these kids ran by, grabbed my kid's bag filled with candy and his glasses, and we need those glasses back. And once the police get involved, as you can imagine, they get involved and they go, okay, and they apparently knew who the kid was who did this. They went and got the kid, and they charged him with a crime. Now, of course, I don't remember the details of what he got charged with, whether it was criminal or juvenile. I don't know. But I remember the defense being raised. He didn't know what was in the bag. Guess what? He shouldn't be stealing from other people. And that's the risk you take. So if you're talking about, for instance, they'll often talk about theft of something worth more than $500 or less than $500, that kind of thing. Or theft of a financial instrument, maybe. I don't know. But the point is that when you steal a jacket, you're responsible for what's in the pockets. By the way, what if he stole the jacket and the pockets are filled with meth? What if? So I shouldn't have to tell you not to steal. I shouldn't have to tell a state cop not to steal. But here we are. So he made a dumb mistake. He's no longer an officer. He's been fired. And the question is, can he go to another state and get a job? I don't know. That's the question everyone's going to ask below the video. I understand that. But when I see a story like this, I go, okay, finally somebody's being held accountable. Because as I've said before, if a total stranger steals your jacket at the bar and it's got your wallet in there, your debit card, whatever it might be, yes, they should be held accountable. A police officer does it, or a judge does it, or a lawyer does it, guess what? Hold them to a higher standard. Absolutely. All day long. So there you go. And right now someone's thinking, Steve, when you steal a jacket in a bar, boy, are you in trouble. Because people will pull this tape back and show it to people, and that'll haunt you. Yes, of course, it will. If I ever stole a jacket in a bar, which I won't. So there you go. Made a dumb mistake. KHP officer fired after bar incident. Coulter Robinson wrote there for KSNT and Ed Senate. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below this. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. When we are young, wandering the face of the earth, wondering what our dreams might be worth, learning that we're only immortal for a limited time.